Guys, welcome back to Clockwork Noodles for another breakdown of Summertime Render episode 18. There is so much to talk about this time. Really quick with my intro. Hello and welcome to the channel. If you are new, make sure you guys are subscribed. We are trying to hit 1k of subscribers. I'm really hoping to do something a bit more interactive with you guys by the end of the year. Quickly move on because there's so much to talk about. I don't want the videos to be too chunky. I think this video might be chunky. Finally given pretty much most of the information that we need. It always feels like we get all the pieces right before it doesn't matter. We can't do anything about it. And this is that episode. This is the episode where we get all the pieces that we've been missing. It feels too late. Could be too late. I don't know the actual source material. However, I have a feeling it's not going to end bad, but I just can't see how it's going to end good. 1732, we've been told about the Great Famine already because I think in Hane's episode, she said, my parents died due to starvation. They didn't come back. This is where we have the deity's story where the deity washed upon the shore as a well. Throughout the entire episode, plenty of hints that anything that washes ashore is considered a gift from the gods. 100% believe that seeing that happen, yeah, you're like, that's it. I believe in God. Suddenly I am a true believer. It's quite sad because the deity essentially took advantage of a very desperate situation. Hundreds of people were starving, and what did the shadow do? It devoured the entire island. It turned them all into shadows. Theoretically, it did solve the starvation problem. You can't starve if you're dead. Selfish deity to wipe out everyone and leave no one alive. This is the 100-year plot that I figured we were going to have. I figured it was going to be a very long plot. Naturally, the character I've been saying that we need to talk to throughout most of the anime is the key character. Kuri. I think I'm going to call him Kiri just so it's a bit easier for me. Irritating because he starts to be quite sus immediately for me when he's unable to keep a straight story, which gave me the idea that there were two. There could even be more. He became more and more sus as we started to talk. You said you were in Tokyo and you don't know how hot it is over there. I was a little shocked that this priest was the one playing video games, modern times, but it was a little shocking to me at first. Maybe there is slight differences with the copies. Maybe they're not quite perfect. Maybe one is a bit more into the games whilst the other ones aren't. Final Fantasy VII. Kiri being a very big nerd confirmed, mentioning Final Fantasy VII and the remake. I have my favourite two games. I love 10. I really enjoy 12. Are probably the games that most people hate. I don't seem to have a very good taste when it comes to Final Fantasy. What I do know about Final Fantasy VII is the symbolicness of it and the idea of a life force. The main message of Final Fantasy VII is we are killing the planet. The planet is dying. In this playthrough, if Kiri is Cloud, he's choosing to just accept death. Everything in this first chunk is him accepting death. Even when later down the line, Shin is trying to convince him that you might be able to change your story. You're not going to be able to go with Hane at the end. Take a hold of your own destiny. He doesn't. Resigned himself to the idea of death even before we get into the big gory bits at the end. I did think it was kind of ironic that we do have the book The Swamp Man. Explains Shinpei's journey. Everything that Shinpei is even going through, the shadows. I think the main character in that one gets replaced. But in this story, every aspect of life is replaced and nobody knows any different. Maybe Shinpei isn't the Swamp Man. Maybe it's actually Kiri. Being a little ironic that Shinpei says, oh, it's ironic that I'm going through all of this. People would notice if Shinpei was changed. I did consider it initially. I did wonder if it was possible that this was deeper and it was telling us that maybe Shinpei is a copy and nobody can notice that he's a copy. And I initially thought that's because his body's in Shide, but it's not. To me, that now means that the Swamp Man story is Kiri's story, the one who was replaced and nobody noticed. All those years that maybe people might have noticed, but nobody did. And anybody who probably went, hey, you look the same and you don't age, they were probably all taken care of. So he was able to keep this guy very easily if you're working with the head honcho. He's able to keep the guys that he's not aging at all. Instead of it being a story of parallels, I believe the Swamp Man story is actually Kiri's story. Initially, I thought Shinpei was testing Kiri, which he is. He is definitely testing him to see how he's going to react on certain things. He wants to know, how much do you know? How do you feel about the idea of copies and shadows? Now, the answer, the same. Well, it makes a bit more sense because we've all seen the ending. He is a copy. Him suddenly saying that a copy is exactly the same and it's the idea of cells and everything. He is the same. And obviously there's multiple hims because it's a cycle of rebirth going on with him. Now looking back at his answer, of course he was going to answer it's the same. It is fun because I did have this talk to you guys last week about the idea of cloning. Whether you believe that if I was cloned, I would be the same person. I'm still of the opinion that a clone isn't me because my consciousness consciousness is over here. I'm not in that body. I'm not going to be piloting that body. I don't think it's the same. It's not the same consciousness. It would be the same body. It would look like me, but I don't think at the core, deep down on the metaphysical level, I don't think it's actually going to be me. A deity from outer space. And our first victim indeed was the fisherman's daughter, Hane, with dark hair, dark eyes, looking a bit like Daddy. I can still have this theory. I think this is the only theory of mine that now stands, that I think somehow Hane's father is Shinpei, but the eyes and lots of links, and there's sometimes hints with the brought to you by Daddy, somehow believe that he is the father. I just don't know how to make anything line up anymore, because lots of my theories this week got blown out of the water, quite sadly. I don't know if I like the alternative to what I was thinking. She did initially say her parents were dead anyways. The shrine guy is looking after her. She's replaced and she becomes a god, so naturally a god falls to the shrine keeper's job because he's a priest and he looks after a place of religious holiness. This also tells us that Hane is 300 years old. I did initially think that she was going to run out and she needed a new vessel. The fact that it takes 300 years, scary, because I thought it would be less than that. Kiri initially fakes innocent and he plays it all off as, oh, you're reading too much fantasy. May have been the point where I knew everything was going to go really, really bad, super bad. Not only did this guy know everything, he was literally there when the Holy Scripture was written on that beach, the same day as that holy event, godly miracle. Initially, I was like, oh, how is he not aged? How come he's 300 years as well? That's even worse. Hane gives birth to a live child and prints that child with all of his data, and he essentially is getting a clone over and over again. So he is his own dad. He is literally his own dad, grandparent. So he's physically his own parent. Really, really weird, and I don't know how I feel about it, but we have pictures. I was a bit confused because the first photo ever taken is 1826, and obviously we're talking 1732. I don't understand how he jumps back to the idea that he's 300 years old, because apparently the photo he has only dates back 70 years. Shinpei is able to go, you were there on the day. He was able to pull all the information ahead and go, yep, you were definitely there. And that is where my first theory gets wiped out. Shide is the priest. So sad, because I thought it was Shinpei. I really thought it was Shinpei. Kiri is Shide. I did initially praise Shinpei. He didn't chance anything, brought that gun up. He wasn't going to make any mistakes. I loved how forceful he was. However, Shinpei does start to slip. One tiny little slip up, being too nice, ends up costing him the most precious thing. I don't think we're gonna get it back. Second picture, which shows the baby and goes into the idea that Kiri is his own dad, having a child with Hane. It's so gross. It's so weird. It does come down to this moral debate of murder. Fully understand Shinpei not wanting to pull the trigger, but it's also sad that he doesn't pull the trigger and it's actually what causes him to lose Ushio. If he had struck first, it might have been a matter of self-defense. However, he can't prove any of this. You're never going to be able to prove any of this to anybody. Everyone's going to think you had murdered a priest outright. Shinpei is just nice. He doesn't want to kill anybody, and he's only forced to kill when he loses the most important thing. At that point, he acts in retaliation. Backstory of this starts to get a wee bit complicated. So we have two families who were the same, and Kiri initially had a family and then someone splits off, and that becomes So and Taki's family. So they're actually related, kind of. One becomes doctors, one becomes priest. Infused shadow knowledge with these two very important families of power. You pretty much control the entire island. When they announced that the baby was Kiri, that's also when I figured out that there were twins, there were doppelgangers. Not only are we talking about ideas of copies, another copy is the idea of a twin. Twins aren't a copy of one another. They both have personalities of their own, both have their own consciousness, where I'm getting the idea of a copy not being the same. Shinpei does seem to realise that there's a chance that there's two. He seems really surprised when the second one comes out, which is really strange. They also explained how he could be in two places at once, so he could be Shide and the priest at the same time, because they announced he was at the funeral, but we also see Shide somewhere else, so how could he possibly be in two places? Well, there's two of them. He's being reborn over and over again, but it doesn't mean that the first copy is being wiped out or anything. It would be possible. It makes sense that it's possible to have more than one Shide at the same time. I still believe that it's possible that there could be more than just two. It also is quite nice because this idea of a cycle being reborn over and over again, this life force, nice Final Fantasy VII links there. I really enjoy the fact that they've put in the game references. Anime has very cleverly sunk in a reference that a lot of us are going to get. They've been able to link something modern, this cycle that is actually going on through the plot. We were told that everybody on the island was turned into shadows, hence they solved the starvation problem, so nobody actually starved. But I'm very confused to how there's any humans left with all of the families we're seeing going missing. It's a trap. Run. Just run. It's a trap. Get out of there. It's so sad. It all just falls apart right in front of our eyes. When we get all the information, all the puzzle pieces are in our hands. I knew he wasn't gonna just die. He wasn't gonna sit there so chill and take a bullet if he knew it didn't really matter. Him just sitting there looking chill meant a few things. One, it didn't matter if he died. Two, he didn't think that Shinpei would even shoot him. And to be fair, he's right, he didn't. It was Ushio who had to take the shot. He actually wanted to be shot. And that's also what plays into it, because he needed to set up the trap. They needed to lure Ushio out. Her acting too soon, her acting way too soon. Even Shinpei is trying to go, no, please don't do anything. Stop. But it's too late because she acts, and then the second Shide Kiri comes out, that's it. There's a trap. There's two of them. There might even be three of them. Ushio is gone. This is exactly what he wanted. This is checkmate, because we've now got rid of the gambit. We've got rid of the one person who was able to move the plot forward, able to get people on board, because we're going to see Shinpei loop into his final loop, and he can't tell people around him, this is the plot so far, because that was an Ushio thing. Ushio was the one who was able to copy and share the plot up until this point with all the characters. Shinpei gets wiped out. Could be one of the more painful ways to go. He gets impaled in a tree, full on Inuyasha style. Shide Theory got wiped out 100% too. Shinpei was too nice. He lost absolutely everything. He's left with one loop, heartbroken. As Shide says, all you're going to take from this loop is despair and regret. At this point, it wouldn't surprise me if he just sat down and said, that's it, I'm done. Just end. Let it all end. Let the festival happen. I don't care, because he can't do anything at this point. What is he going to be able to achieve? How can we achieve anything other than a really bad end? I don't understand how this anime is going to end any other way than badly, but I said the same thing about 86. I've said the same thing about a few anime. Sometimes I'm like, well, I don't see how we can have a good ending. If they do pull a good ending out, it needs to make sense. Don't pull something like Ball Fluff with me. I want to make sure whatever you make happen now, it needs to logically make sense. That whatever ending we now get lines up, has been built up to it, and doesn't just pull a bit of plot armor out of nowhere. The only theory that now stands is that is a link between Ushio, Shinpei and Hane. It's been hinted at subtly, it's been hinted at quite blatantly. It just feels a bit weird that they would say things like brought to you by daddy and not have it mean anything. Don't quite know how I feel about this twist instead. Shide is actually a character who we've not really interacted with. Obviously it makes sense, but it's also a character that as a audience we haven't really interacted with him. So I don't know how I feel about that rug pull. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Yes, it is really, really hot over here. The heat wave is back. I'm also really sick. I'm hoping you guys haven't noticed it too much. My voice is back for now. It wasn't there yesterday, so thankfully I didn't do any breakdowns yesterday. I'm struggling. The heat's getting to me, so this video needs to go up. There may be a slight delay on the midway review just because I don't think my voice is going to hold out. I might try and aim to get it recorded on Sunday, so you might be looking at maybe the beginning of next week. I'll try and get the midway review done. I've already got all of my rankings. I know what I'm going to rank. I just need to record it and then put it all together. Thank you guys so much. I really hope you guys are looking after yourselves. If it is hot, make sure you're staying hydrated. See you guys again next week in another video. Until then, have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.